So this is Chapter 6, Lesson 1 and 2. We'll start with Lesson 1. Lesson 1 deals with the distributive property, and that means the property that states that multiplying a sum by a number is the same as multiplying each addend by the number and then adding those products together, basically. When I read it again with the numbers, the property that states that multiplying a sum by a number, 3 in the example below, is the same as multiplying each addend, 4 and 2, by the number 3 and then adding the products. So what they're saying is, we have this problem right over here. 4 plus 2 is 6. 3 times 6 is 18. Now on the other side, we're going to distribute the 3. So we're going to distribute the 3 to the 4 and the 3 to the 2. So now we have two different problems. 3 times 4 is 12 and 3 times 2 is 6. And that's what is meant when it says adding the products. So these are the products, 12 plus 6, and then we get 18. And both these equal each other. But we're just distributing the 3 to the other addends, which were 4 and 2. So the children won't have these arrays to draw. It's too much for them to draw, but they'll have a couple of test problems that deal with these. And the distributive property basically is saying we have this area of rectangles. It's 5 units wide and 16 units long. Now we can take those two numbers and multiply them to each other and get 80. What the distributive property does is you can divide the rectangle into two parts to make it easier to find the area. Divide your rectangle, shade, and label each part. Now they're using smaller numbers, but they're just showing you how to do it because they'll be using bigger numbers later. So now we're going to distribute the 5 to the 10 and the 5 to the 6. So now I have two problems. 5 times 10 plus 5 times 6. 5 times 10 is 50. 5 times 6 is 30. And then we get 80. Same as we did before. So we're making our find the area of the rectangle. The distributive property allows you to break a multiplication expression into partial products. You can then add the partial products to find the product. So instead of doing 5 times 16 or 10 plus 6 is 16 times 5, we broke them down into two partial products, got those answers, and then added those together. And that's what the distributive property is. In Lesson 2, we start using it with missing numbers. Lesson 2, we're going to use a distributive property. Now you have to find a missing number, which is a variable in the problem. So we have 5 times 23 equals 5 times 12 plus 5 times m. This is kind of like the array we just saw with the blocks. We're going to have 5 blocks going down, and then we're going to have 23 going across. Only we broke it up. We have 12 and then a missing number. So only the way to find the m is just take your 23 and your 12, subtract them, and we get 11. So now we know that m equals 11. Now we want to make sure that both sides equal each other. So we have 5 times 23, that equals 115. And then we have 5 times 12 equals 60. 5 times 11 equals 55. 60 plus 55 equals 115. And we're good. They both equal each other. Next problem here is 6 times 53 equals 6 times n plus 6 times 3. Again, this is like having 6 blocks going down and 53 blocks going across. Only we broke it up. So we have 3, and then we have the other ones, which again we just take 53 and 3 and subtract them, and get 50, which is right there. So n equals 50. Now that we know what n equals, we can go ahead and figure it out and make sure that both sides equal 318, because 653 times 6 is 618. Let's start this one at the bottom. 6 times 50 is 300. 6 times 3 is 18. And then 30 plus 300 plus 18 equals 318. So they equal each other. The next one we have is when missing the first number, look at the first number of the other problems. Like before, we had the blocks, and we had 5 blocks going down. And then we have the other ones up top. For example, 23. Well, remember we used the 5 and we distributed that to the other numbers, like 12 and 11. So since we distributed the 5, you're always going to look for that first number. The first number on each problem, 1, 2, 3, is going to be the same. So we have 5 here and we have 5 there, so naturally this is going to be a 5. If you're missing the 5 on this one, we've got 5, 5, and that'll be 5. Or you're missing the number on the last problem, 5, 5, and 5. So n equals 5 on all of them if you're missing those first numbers. Now what if you're missing the number in the first product? 5 times n. We already have these other two over here, but now we're missing the product in the first one. Again, I use the blocks. We have 5 blocks going down, and we have the blocks going across. They're already broken up to 12 and 11. So basically we're just going to take 12 and 11 and add them to each other and get 23. So you take the two numbers you have, 12 and 11, and add them to each other and get 23. Now we know what n equals, and we can multiply to see if they are equal to each other. So we have 5 times 23 equals 115. 5 times 12 is 60. 5 times 11 is 55. And 60 plus 55 is 115. So there's how you find the missing number in these equations by using the distributive property. You just have to subtract some numbers or add them to see what the missing number is, and then multiply just to make sure that they equal each other. Lesson 3, you can see we're going to get into properties of addition, but that'll be next week. Here's their homework for tonight. Number 1 we did in class. I said there's J, so what is the missing number? Well, like I said, we've got 3 in the first number, in the first product. We got 3 in the third product, so naturally J will equal 3. Number 2, we have 8 times 15 equals 8 times 10 plus 8 times a number. So this is saying you have 8 blocks going down, 15 blocks going across. Well, we broke it up. So we have 10 blocks, and then we have the remaining blocks, which would be 5. So we would take 15 and 10, subtract them, and get 5. So M equals 5. Now that we know that, we can make sure they equal each other. 15 times 8 is 120. 8 times 10 is 80. 8 times 5 is 40. And 80 times 40 is 120. So they equal each other. The answer I'm looking for here, though, is 5. But we just want to make sure that they equal each other. They did a few more problems on their own, and I generally think they're kind of understanding it, but hopefully if not, this video will help them.